My friends, what we saw in Beijing recently was not a summit between two equal leaders. That was not diplomacy. It was a veiled surrender on a red carpet. What the cameras showed was the captain of a sinking ship with water already up to his neck, saluting the owner of the only lifeboat available in the ocean. Vladimir Putin, the man who tried to restore the glory of the empire, traveled to China not as an ally, but as a junior partner who needs to ask for permission to breathe. We are witnessing an unprecedented historical reversal. In the 20th century, the Soviet Union was the master, the ideological guide, the giant that financed the young People's Republic of China. Mao Zedong took orders from Moscow. Today, the situation is humiliating for the Kremlin. Putin landed in Beijing with a massive delegation of 39 high-ranking Russian officials, including the Russian business elite, not to celebrate a friendship, but to renew a survival contract that is costing Russia its soul. The total isolation of Moscow caused by Western sanctions forced Putin to sell what was left of Russian sovereignty to Xi Jinping in exchange for an artificial extension of survival on the battlefield. He is no longer the Tsar who challenges the world. He is the manager of a Chinese province that supplies cheap raw materials in exchange for second-hand technology. The Tsar of the swamp is on his knees, and the Chinese dragon is just collecting the price of his loyalty. Putin is desperate. He is racing against the clock and the draining of his coffers. To keep the war machine running in Ukraine, he has started a strategic liquidation of everything Russia took decades to build. He sold unrestricted access to Siberia's natural resources. And even more seriously, he handed over what was left of Russia's sensitive military technology in exchange for engines, microchips, and drones that China produces by the billions. There is a factor that keeps Putin up at night, the 2026 effect. He knows that Donald Trump's return to the White House completely changes Xi Jinping's calculations. If American policy changes and China is trapped, pressured economically through tariffs and secondary sanctions, Xi Jinping will not hesitate for a second to sacrifice Russia to save his own trillion-dollar business with the West. Putin knows he is a disposable piece in Beijing's game. Putin has mortgaged the future of 10 generations of Russians. He sold weapons, gas, oil, and technological autonomy just to avoid falling today. But let me ask you a question. Do you really think China is loyal to Putin? Let me tell you what happened with the power of Siberia 2. Beijing didn't sign the contract. Do you know why? Because they're waiting for the bear to bleed a little more so they can buy the gas at rock-bottom prices. China isn't helping Russia, it's cannibalizing what's left while Putin is wounded. And he knows that time is his worst enemy, especially with the 2026 effect knocking at his door. While the world watches the explosions on the front lines, the real strangulation is happening at the global choke points. Trump has already made his focus clear. Hormuz, energy, Taiwan, chips, and the Strait of Malacca trade. If Trump closes these gates, the world changes, and Xi Jinping knows that. That's why China focuses on keeping Putin on life support. Russia has become the useful wild card, the distraction that keeps the West busy while Beijing prepares for the final move. The reality is harsh for the Russian soldier in the trench. Russia is trading its strategic independence for drones that come out of factories in China for less than $2,000. Meanwhile, the American defense system is being tested and recalibrated for a large-scale war. Russia is not just losing men, it is losing its relevance as a technological power. China is using Russia as a live battlefield laboratory in Ukraine to learn in real time. How can they fight against Western systems without shedding a single drop of Chinese blood? Every drone shot down, every electronic warfare tactic tested by Putin is data collected by Beijing to be used against Taiwan and the United States in the future. Putin is not an ally, he is a disposable test pilot. Look around and see who is still standing with Moscow. The isolation is almost absolute. Here we need to talk about Brazil. Our diplomacy has become irrelevant, just an echo of narratives that no one listens to anymore in the real centers of power. Brazil has become a silent international pariah, flirting with regimes that are on the wrong side of history just because of an office ideology that doesn't feed anyone. South Africa has disappeared from the map of geopolitical relevance. The Arab countries are paralyzed, scared to death of Iran and waiting to see how Trump will handle the war in Iran. What remains is the club of outcasts, China, which is melting down from within and has its own interests, and North Korea, a broken and starving country that trades artillery ammunition for food. It's an alliance of geopolitical zombies. The Sino-Russian axis doesn't need to win a direct battle against the United States to feel powerful. They just need Washington to keep spending resources on every front at the same time. Iran, Ukraine, and now in Latin America. And this strategy of fighting on multiple fronts eventually hits a physical limit. The American defense industry takes 3 to 5 years to replenish stocks of expensive missiles. But the Russian economy doesn't have 3 months of breathing room if China decides to cut off credit. You've already seen in our previous briefings, China is facing a brutal real estate and demographic crisis. The dragon has caught a cold. And when China sneezes, it comes down with fatal pneumonia. If the Chinese economy is struggling, the Russian economy is in the ICU with multiple organ failure, kept alive only by machines that have a Made in China label. This friendship without limits is actually an assisted suicide pact. Xi Jinping is using Putin as a human shield. He pushes the bear to the front lines to observe the impact of sanctions and military wear and tear, while desperately trying to save the Chinese economy from total collapse. The dragon has no friends, only interests. And the current interest is to keep Russia bleeding so that the West doesn't focus entirely on the Pacific. Putin's Russia has lost the ability to say no, and when Beijing demands access to Russian satellite data or Arctic routes, Putin obeys. He sold Russian sovereignty for a handful of drones and the promise that he won't be overthrown by an internal coup tomorrow. It's the end of the dignity of a nation that was once a superpower. The world has changed, and the Dragonbeard axis is a facade of power that hides extreme fragility. The Tsar is kneeling and the dragon is hungry. Russia is no longer a player. It is the board where China and the United States compete for 21st century hegemony. Putin thought he was playing chess, but he ended up being the piece that was sacrificed at the start of the game. Are you going to keep believing in the narrative of a new world order led by these regimes? Or are you going to look at the raw data that shows the economic, social, and moral bankruptcy of these dictatorships? The propaganda is strong, it's the best in the world, but reality is relentless. The world is returning to the axis of order. And those who bet on chaos are starting to pay the price. Now comment below, reality or illusion? I want to know here who has already managed to break through the bubble of the official narrative and see the imminent collapse of this zombie axis. Is this the kind of intelligence you won't see on Journal Nacional? If you want access to the full briefings, risk maps, and behind-the-scenes analyses that decode the future, come to our Bunker da Inteligencia. We are already more than 3,000 analysts funding the truth here on the platform to reach na plataforma para chegar até você. Access it through the QR code on the screen, the pinned link in the comments, and in the description. No censorship, no risk of being taken down with the stroke of a pen. And we created a channel for series and movies with wonderful reviews and tips for you to enjoy with your family on the weekend. Series that deal with conflicts in the Middle East, espionage, look, amazing tips. There's also a really cool series premiering. Tough stuff for you to enjoy. So come to the channel, the link is in the description in the pinned comment, and here in the card we also have our military technology channel. Enjoy the content we bring to you, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, leave a like on the video, shield your mind. I'm Shimon Oliveira and I'll see you next time. Until then.